Under the mantle of stars stretches a mountain chain, where the cries of a baby echo in the night. This land belongs to a brave hunter, whose first instinct upon hearing these cries is to take his axe, thinking it might be a weasel lurking, sure that those small animals have made a big mistake. As he approaches the hunter's cabin, he follows the sound of the cries around his house, and upon reaching the stable finds no one there, except his horses. For a moment he wonders if he is hallucinating. After all, since he and his wife learned they could not have children, he had been hearing children's voices, but it was not a hallucination. There in the meadow is a baby. He quickly picks it up, and as he brings it closer, he can feel its heartbeat. At that moment his wife arrives, surprised to see him holding a child. It is then that both mutually remember that this child will be theirs. There is a famous legend about a wizard, who with just a gesture of his hands could summon a gust of wind that made the clouds gather above him. Soon the rain fell from the skies, quenching the thirsty earth, and making it shine with life. The villagers rejoiced, and their songs filled the air, since the wizard not only brought the rain, but also protected the city from threats beyond its borders. Through his mystical powers, peace and prosperity flourished, and hunger and thirst were eradicated. However, the wizard did not rest. Tirelessly he continued his research, always seeking to improve people's lives. His feats were so extraordinary that they called him the well-mannered wizard, and his story became a legend cherished by all Cerrone. Arian, the boy who was once found in the stable, grew up reading this story now at 12 years old. Cerrone often immerses himself in books, captivated by the magic within their pages. His father, Vincent Aran, now 40 years old, never tires of seeing his son read for Vincent. His son's curiosity and enthusiasm are infinitely endearing today. After finishing his work chopping wood, Vincent lovingly turns to his son, before pointing out that it's time to go home. As they walk through the forest, Cerrone looks at his father and asks about magic, how it works, and if he could ever learn to use it. The humble hunter, who knows little beyond the house, responds in his simple and sincere way. Meanwhile, some of Cerrone's companions see him with his father, and wonder why Cerrone is always so interested in accompanying his father or reading books. Even when they invite him to play, he refuses. They begin to doubt that Cerrone understands the books he reads, thinking they are too advanced for him. Later, upon seeing Cerrone walk beside Vincent, some of the children start to think that Vincent is not really his father. One of the mothers tells her children that Vincent is not the owner of Cerrone, claiming they found him somewhere when he was still a baby. Meanwhile, while the children talk, Vincent hears them. He is angry inside but does not confront the boys. Instead, he clings to his belief that he is Cerrone's father. No matter what, determined to make Cerrone happy, Vincent decides to take him to the city the next day to get the fruits he wants as a reward for helping him that day. Cerrone feels happy and looks forward to going to the market, although Vincent silently wishes he could do more for him. However, Cerrone remains desperate to learn about magic. The next day they head to the city, since in the kingdom of Toria. Cerrone marvels at the beautiful sight of the city. When they arrive at a shop, Vincent asks Cerrone to stay with an old man he knows while he runs some errands. He warns Cerrone not to wander off and to avoid the nobles. Vincent quickly leaves, leaving Cerrone waiting. While helping the old man a little, Cerrone takes the opportunity to ask him about magic. At first the old man doesn't understand, so Cerrone repeats himself. The man then directs him to a bookstore across from his shop, where he can find books about magic. Excited, Cerrone quickly heads to the bookstore. Upon entering and about to take a book, someone yells at him and tells him not to touch anything. The bookseller says his hands are too dirty to handle the books. Cerrone asks if he can at least read one, but is denied again. The bookseller explains that the books are very expensive and intended only for nobles. Disheartened, Cerrone leaves the store and then notices some books stacked in a corner on the floor. Recognizing the place, he realizes it could be where his father gets the books he reads to him. However, he notices a detail. The nobles who visit the bookstore not only get the books they want, but are also treated with great respect, which makes Cerrone wonder why nobles receive such privileges while he is excluded. Remembering his father's warning about avoiding nobles, he begins to question what could be wrong. While Cerrone prepares to leave, suddenly the guards catch him. They demand to know how he managed to enter the bookstore premises, reserved only for nobles. Cerrone explains that his father is nearby, but the guards do not believe him. They assume he is an orphan and decide to detain him before they can properly hold him. Cerrone skillfully escapes when the guards realize what has happened. They only find his jacket. Cerrone has already hidden behind some flowers near a building. From his hiding spot, Cerrone hears some children arguing about magic. They are asking someone to explain what magic is. At first the person gives a vague explanation, most of which Cerrone already knows from his readings. Then, the person says something that captures Cerrone's attention. Magic has to do with perception. At that moment, Cerrone feels he has found an answer he had been searching for. The person continues, explaining that perception is sharper than knowledge and faster than skill, adding that with a little cultivation, anyone with enough perception can become a mage. While Cerrone listens attentively to the conversation, inside the premises, he suddenly hears the voice of an old man, suggesting he climb the wall if he wants to hear better. Cerrone is surprised at first. Since it seems the old man knows what he is thinking, he doesn't know what to do but considers whether to follow the advice or leave. He finally decides to climb the wall, feeling that not doing so would be a regret he would carry for the rest of his life. So he climbs to the top of the wall and sees a group of children gathered around an old man sitting under a tree. The old man notices him immediately and, to Cerrone's surprise, invites him down to join the conversation. The old man introduces himself as Alphys Miri, the director of the Lao School of Magic and a level 4 mage. Encouraged by Alphys's warm invitation, Cerrone prepares to come down from the wall and join the group. Cerrone enters the academy grounds and sees a group of children his age, sitting under a huge tree with the old man who is the director. As Cerrone approaches, the children quickly try to reject him, insisting he leave because he is not a noble. However, the director Alphys Miri intervenes, asking Cerrone to step forward and share why he climbed the wall. Cerrone sincerely explains that he wants to see magic, admitting that he has only read about it in books but has never seen it in real life. The children mock him, accusing him of lying, but Cerrone begs the director to demonstrate magic. Alphys agrees, saying he will summon the wind for Cerrone. The director activates wind magic, causing the children and Cerrone to levitate in the air. Cerrone is amazed by the experience, eyes wide open, full of wonder as he feels magic firsthand. After descending, still full of curiosity, he asks the director what magic really is. The frankness and sincerity of Cerrone's question surprise Alphys, leading him to explain. Alphys tells Cerrone that magic is an act that breaks the laws. Generals of the world is the mental application of exploring and discovering the hidden truths in phenomena. Cerrone listens attentively, then points out, thoughtfully, something he has noticed in the books he has read. He mentions that many great thinkers were persecuted for their unconventional ideas, only for those ideas to later be accepted as universal truths. He wonders aloud if the essence of truth is already hidden within such anomalies. This observation impresses the director, but also leaves him curious about Cerrone's perspective. When Cerrone anxiously asks how magic can be learned, Alphys doubts. He is not sure that Cerrone, being a peasant, is capable of mastering magic. To demonstrate the required skill, he asks one of the students, nobles, to enter the spiritual zone. The student concentrates deeply, entering an intensely sensitive mental state, and successfully guesses the number of coins hidden in the director's closed hand. Cerrone is amazed by the accuracy of the student's guess. The director explains that when a mage is completely focused, he tunes in so much to his surroundings that he can perceive things beyond the ordinary. The spiritual zone is a state of heightened sensitivity, where the mind can influence and control the phenomena around it. Cerrone feels confident in his ability to achieve what the other student demonstrated. The director, observing his determination, and advises him to find a quiet place to practice, emphasizing the importance of first finding oneself and then erasing oneself. Although the concept is abstract and challenging, it awakens Cerrone's curiosity and determination. The director knows that although anyone can try to enter the spiritual zone, only a few chosen ones have the ability to truly master it. Encouraged by his enthusiasm, the director allows Cerrone to try entering the spiritual zone immediately. Cerrone closes his eyes and concentrates deeply with his mind focused on the task. As he begins to understand the essence of the practice, his actions seem uncertain and unpolished to those watching. The noble students dismiss his efforts as fruitless, and the director, although intrigued, appears indifferent on the outside. However, Cerrone's persistence does not go unnoticed, and the director silently acknowledges that with continued effort Cerrone could develop a heightened sensitivity to the world around him. After leaving with the students, the director reflects on Cerrone's innate potential. He recognizes that Cerrone exhibits a natural aptitude for magic, one that might have flourished if he had been raised in a noble family. From an early age, this thought lingers in the director's mind as he considers the possibility that Cerrone's talents might exceed expectations despite his humble origins. Only on the academy grounds, Cerrone processes what he has learned. Determined to improve, he leaves the academy, jumping over the wall once again now, fully immersed in the spiritual zone. Cerrone experiences a deep sense of connection with everything around him. As his understanding deepens, he feels as if he has become one with the world itself. An overwhelming sensation of limitlessness coursing through him. With this new awareness, he runs home, eager to explore the possibilities of this power, but moving quickly, He accidentally bumps into someone and falls to the ground. He immediately apologizes. But the people he bumped into are not ordinary passers-by, they are gangsters, and their tempers flare with fury. They begin to assault him, offended by the unintentional collision in the middle of the altercation. A noble girl arrives and inquires about the commotion. The gangsters explain that they are simply teaching a lesson to the peasant. Cerrone tries to explain himself, but his words are ignored as the gangsters continue to beat him. The noble girl, however, intervenes, urging them to stop and warning that Cerrone could be seriously injured or even killed while trying to take control of the situation. The gangsters, dismissive of her intervention, continue arguing about what to do next. One of them mentions that they could sell Cerrone as a slave, reasoning that no one would care about a peasant, and they wouldn't have any problems because of it. The noble girl, perplexed by their cruelty, suggests that they examine Cerrone first. However, the gangsters misinterpret her words, assuming she wants Cerrone to undress right then. Something inside Cerrone breaks the humiliation. The fear and helplessness he has felt overflow into a single overwhelming emotion. In an instant, time stops, confused. He wonders what is happening as he freezes. Memories of the magic demonstration of the wind by the director flood his mind. Cerrone realizes that, unintentionally, he has triggered a magical response just like the wind magic the director had shown. Suddenly time starts moving again, and the gangsters no longer control the situation. Without warning, everyone begins to levitate off the ground, suspended by an invisible force. In an instant, they fall back to the ground with tremendous force, their bones breaking from the impact, leaving them seriously injured and incapacitated. The noble girl, surprised by the display of power, approaches Cerrone. Her curiosity awakened, she asks him where he learned such magic, commenting that he is just a peasant, and such abilities are unheard of in someone like him. However, before Cerrone can answer, a crowd begins to gather, attracted by the noise and commotion. Realizing the danger of staying longer, the noble girl quickly retreats, disappearing into the crowd. Cerrone, feeling the cold weight of the world around him, does the same and flees. As he moves through the streets, Cerrone cannot shake the feeling that the world is distant and indifferent. In the house of the noble family known for their first-class nobility, the master of the house, Sakakaris, is reading the newspaper. He notices his daughter, the noble girl from before, enter the room. He lifts his gaze from the newspaper and asks why she has returned earlier than expected. She responds indifferently that she has learned everything she needed to know and that the class is no longer fun. With a change in her attitude, she then asks her father if he has any connection to the magic school, expressing interest in meeting them. Vincent looks around anxiously for Cerrone, his worry growing when his wife informs him that Cerrone has gone to the logging area to cut wood despite the snow still falling. Vincent decides to look for him, worried about the severe weather. As he leaves, he recalls the day he took Cerrone to the city last spring. That day, Cerrone almost got lost, and Vincent wonders what has really happened to the boy since then. In the middle of the snow-covered forest, Cerrone stands in front of one of the trees, remembering how he managed to use magic that day, but has not been able to replicate it since, as it was a subconscious act. Although he hasn't managed to do magic again, he can still enter the spiritual zone. In this elevated state, he perceives everything around him with sharpened clarity. His eyes rest on a specific spot on the tree where the light seems to shine more intensely, and instinctively he strikes the tree with his axe. The tree shatters into splinters from the force of the blow, and Cerrone realizes he just knocked it down with a single hit. Without Cerrone knowing, Vincent has been silently watching from behind a tree, surprised by what seems to be lightning. Vincent watches closely as Cerrone continues cutting, unaware of his father's presence. Cerrone, lost in his own thoughts, feels a deep need for knowledge and decides to repeat his actions every day, determined to prepare for the moment when the opportunity to understand his abilities resurface. 3 years have passed, and Cerrone has grown both in skill and in understanding of his capabilities. Now competent in entering the spiritual zone, he can connect with nature during his meditative sessions, feeling as if he has become one with the world itself. With wooden logs in hand, he heads home eager to return to the family routine. However, upon arriving home, Cerrone notices an unusual scene, a luxurious carriage pulled by white horses parked outside. Something is different and his curiosity grows as he enters. His parents introduce him to a visitor, a well-dressed butler of the Ohan house, a second-class noble family. His name is Cerrone, and he has come to speak with Cerrone after hearing about his reading ability. Cerrone, confused, wonders why a servant of a noble family would be interested in him, especially because the Ohan house is known for its high status. Terran explains he has a job offer for Cerrone, an opportunity to work for the Ohan house. During the relocation of their great library, this library, one of the largest in the region, contains nearly 10,000 books, many of which must remain strictly within the grounds of the house. The process will take 2 years, with Cerrone and Cerrone in charge of organizing while the heavy lifting will be done by porters. Cerrone, surprised, realizes this must mean the Ohan house possesses great knowledge, particularly advanced knowledge of magic, which would be invaluable to him. But meanwhile, as Terran speaks, Cerrone feels a strange tension, especially when the butler mentions that the only people who know about the library relocation are his family. If even a single book leaves the grounds, or if rumors about missing books spread, it could mean serious consequences, and his family's lives would be at risk. Vincent, Cerrone's father, listens to the conversation, and with quiet understanding, Terran had initially thought that Vincent had sold Cerrone for this job in exchange for money, but Vincent denies it, insisting he simply wants to give Cerrone the chance to achieve his dream. Terran had told Vincent that Cerrone should be able to read the books of the Ohan house, which Vincent believed would help him pursue his aspirations. However, Terran dismisses this idea, pointing out that Cerrone will not be able to read all the time, and they cannot watch him all day. Frustration grows in the room as Terran impresses upon Vincent, questioning if he had lied to Cerrone about his future all this time. Vincent, deeply worried about the situation, reflects on his role in Cerrone's life. He feels a pang of guilt knowing that Cerrone is not his biological son, but still recognizing the boy's potential. Vincent had always believed Cerrone must have noble blood, which is why he asked Terran to take him in, simply to give Cerrone the chance to access the knowledge of the library. He had never cared about money, but the reality of the situation begins to weigh heavily on him. In a moment of frustration, Vincent asks Taran to leave his house, realizing he made a mistake involving his son in this dangerous situation. As Terran prepares to leave, Cerrone stops him, surprising both Terran and his parents with calm determination. Cerrone agrees to take the job offered by the Ohan house. Terran, although relieved, warns Cerrone again, emphasizing the serious consequences, and if even the slightest rumor were to spread, he warns that Cerrone's life would end if anything goes wrong. Cerrone, fully understanding what is at stake, assures he will be cautious and will not hold a grudge, even if things take a wrong turn. Terran acknowledges his determination and tells him he will come for him in a week. He warns that once he steps onto the grounds of the Ohan house, there will be no turning back until the job is completed. With that, Terran says goodbye. Vincent, deeply worried, watches Terran's departure. Fearful that Cerrone's walking into something dangerous, he expresses his fears to Cerrone, suggesting that Terran is not seeking a worker but a sacrifice. Vincent offers to help Cerrone get out of the deal, but Cerrone reassures him gratefully, thanking his father for the greatest gift he could have received. His unconditional support moved, Vincent hugs him tightly, promising that he and his mother will always be there for him no matter what happens. A week later, Cerrone's ready to leave. Although he feels a pang of hesitation leaving his parents, he knows this is an opportunity he cannot miss. He is about to enter a world full of powerful people, and although he doesn't know if he will survive the next 2 years, he feels a sense of purpose rising within him. The Owente house is located in Castoria, known for producing warriors of great strength and renowned the men sent to escort Cerrone. Explain to him that the founder of the Owent house was a level 3 general, and the current master of the house, Service Owent, is a level 4 knight. They explain that Service Op controls the city's military force, a powerful figure with enormous influence. When Cerrone arrives at the grand mansion of the Owent house, he is impressed by the grandeur of everything. The property, a symbol of second-class nobility, rises before him with its imposing structure and intricate design. Overwhelming him, it's clear that Cerrone has entered a realm far above his previous life. The service rooms and offices where Cerrone will stay are located in a separate part of the mansion as they escort him to his new living space. Cerrone can't help but feel both awe and apprehension the next day. Cerrone is taken by Tamaran to the great library, a vast room filled with shelves full of books. Tamaran explains the importance of the task ahead. All the books must be relocated to the new library and Cerrone will be in charge of classifying them. Tamaran gives Cerrone a list of books to organize each week, explaining that his task is to gather the books according to the list, making sure they are properly categorized. His working hours will be from 9 inches the morning to 6 inches the evening. With the nights free, however, Duran warns Cerrone that he will not be able to leave the grounds during working hours nor enter the main mansion. Unless directly ordered to do so, the downstairs butlers will inform him of additional rules. Cerrone will begin his tasks the next day. The following morning, Cerrone gets to work, dresses appropriately, and soon realizes why one person is assigned to classify all the books. It is important that the classification system remains consistent as he works. Cerrone comes to understand that all knowledge is interconnected, and that the common thread that binds everything is history. He soon notices that out of the 10,000 books in the library, 850 are about history, determined to learn everything. Cerrone decides he will dedicate the next 2 years to reading these books, because if he really wants to become a mage, this is his path. While working, Cerrone immerses himself in the history books, but quickly closes one when he hears footsteps approaching. He doesn't want Tamaran to find out he is reading outside of his assigned task. However, Tamaran notices Cerrone's impressive skill at classifying the books. He also observes that Cerrone tends to work late into the night. Tamaran advises him not to overexert himself, as there is still a long way to go. As he approaches Cerrone, Tamaran points out that not only servants enter the library, but also the master of the house and his children. He warns Cerrone that he must be careful with his appearance and actions, as he must maintain the dignity of the Owent house. At all times, he also suggests he take care of his long hair, hinting that he should be more presentable with one last look. Tamaran. Cerrone is left to reflect on the advice. Later, Cerrone is back in the library. Absorbed in history books, he begins to realize how vast the history of Toria alone is. There is so much to learn. Overwhelmed, he wonders how he is supposed to study everything else as well. He concludes that he must focus on understanding at least a part of each historical event, and move on, instead of getting stuck in the details. As he continues reading, exhaustion begins to take its toll, and Cerrone falls asleep, with his head resting on the books. Tamaran, entering the library later, finds Cerrone sleeping at his desk, sighing, thinking that Cerrone is foolishly trying to tackle everything at once, and that at this pace, he will be stuck on a single book for weeks. Feeling somewhat frustrated with Cerrone's lofty dreams, Tamura shakes his head and leaves, letting Cerrone continue his rest. Cerrone is behind the reception desk of the Grand Library, with his hands busy cataloging and classifying books. As always, he attends to any noble who comes to borrow books. Although the behavior of the nobles no longer surprises him, despite knowing the importance of his work guiding the books and maintaining the library catalog, he is still frustrated that many nobles borrow books without returning them on time, come back for more, holding the borrowed books, as if they had the right to keep them indefinitely. However, Cerrone maintains his composure, focusing on keeping his devotion to work, even if that means dealing with the nobles' disdain for the rules. More than 3 months have passed since Cerrone started working at the Owent house, and by then, the noble's behavior no longer affects him. What does surprise him is how much progress he has made in his studies. He has read more than 80 books during his time there, and although he is still far from his goal of reading 1,000, he gains valuable knowledge every day. However, he knows that not all scholars have the potential to become mages, especially those who cannot access the spiritual realm. Fortunately for Cerrone, his ability to enter the spiritual realm gives him an advantage that sets him apart from most scholars, making him more efficient and capable as a mage. This realization further drives his dedication to his work. One day, while attending the usual flow of nobles entering the library, Cerrone notices a commotion. A young noble, Leo, rushes into the library, looking anxious and somewhat disheveled. Instinctively observing Leo's hurried movements, Cerrone quickly senses that something is wrong. His intuition tells him that someone powerful is chasing Leo. As he hurriedly enters the library, there is an urgency in his demeanor. He quickly approaches Cerrone with a face showing a mix of frustration and desperation, and without saying much, he urges him to lie for him if anyone asks about his presence. Leo hides under one of the shelves, trying to avoid being detected. Shortly after, the door bursts open and Master Kate enters, filling the room with his imposing presence. He demands to know where Leo is. Without hesitation, Cerrone points to Leo's hiding place despite the danger of betraying him. Cerrone understands the rules of noble culture. When serving someone of higher rank, like Master Kate, there is no room for disobedience. Cerrone helps drag Leo out of the library, and as they take him away, Leo throws a vengeful promise at Cerrone, swearing that for exposing him, Cerrone will regret it. Cerrone, however, stands firm in his decision, understanding that he had no other choice. The noble hierarchy demands obedience from those in higher positions, and Cerrone's status as a servant leaves him no room to challenge Master Kate. Leo is taken away, and rumors circulate that he is dragged to the mountains, never to return. For months, the whole incident seems to fade away, but the memory persists in Cerrone's mind, knowing that Leo's anger is not easily forgotten. Months pass, and Cerrone remains focused on his work, his studies, and his duties in the library. But one day, while he is absorbed in his books, the door suddenly slams open with force. To his surprise, it is Leo, looking alive. But with eyes full of fierce determination, Leo approaches Cerrone, with his presence charged with intent. And it is clear he has come for one thing only: revenge. Despite the months of intense training Leo must have undergone, Cerrone can still see the same fire in his eyes. Leo's resolve has not diminished, and now Cerrone finds himself face to face with the consequences of his previous actions. He tries to explain his reasons, but Leo's anger is palpable, and Cerrone feels the sting of being called a coward. Leo accuses Cerrone of betraying him out of fear, claiming that his actions were unjustified. Cerrone holds his ground, although the words cut deep. He justifies his actions by explaining that he only exposed Leo because he feared the consequences of enraging Master Kate, but Leo is not interested in explanations. He demands a duel, a way to settle the score between them. He presents a wooden sword, and declares that he will show Cerrone how powerful he is. Although Cerrone hesitates, he accepts, knowing there is no other way to resolve the tension between them. He is not a swordsman, and Leo's reputation as a skilled fighter weighs heavily on his mind. But Cerrone maintains his resolve, accepting to let Leo have the first 3 strikes. The duel begins and Cerrone throws a blow with all his strength. But even with his initial advantage, he quickly realizes how much stronger Leo is. His blows are easily blocked, and the power behind Leo's defense leaves Cerrone struggling to keep up. Cerrone throws another strike with more effort than before, but when the wooden swords clash, they break with a loud crack. Both wooden swords break with a sharp snap, and the sound echoes throughout the library, surprising both. But it is Leo who is more astonished. He never expected such power from Cerrone, who just moments ago seemed helpless in this duel. Leo freezes for a moment, unable to process what just happened. After a few moments of stunned silence, he finally asks Cerrone how he managed to strike with such force. Cerrone, always straightforward, explains that the power behind his blow does not come from fencing or sword training. He tells Leo that it comes from a skill he learned when he was young, when his father taught him to chop wood. At first, Cerrone struggled with the task, unable to split the logs, no matter how hard he tried. But through persistence, he discovered what he now calls Thunder Strike, a blow that channels all his energy into one powerful movement. Although he has only used this technique to chop wood, Cerrone has practiced it for years, perfecting the skill until it became second nature to him. Leo listens, still struggling to believe what Cerrone just told him. He feels a mix of disbelief and shame. How could he, a noble son, be surpassed in such a way by someone with no formal training? He had been so sure of his own superiority and skill with the sword, and yet here was Cerrone, someone without a fencing background, making a fool of him in such a humiliating way. This feeling of shame stirs something deep inside Leo. It awakens a childhood memory, one that has haunted him for years. When he was young, one of his brothers had defeated him in a duel, a fair fight, and that left a lasting mark. That defeat in front of his father changed everything. Leo Lionheart's father always seemed to favor the other children, and from that moment, Leo felt he could never measure up. His brothers, each with their own specialized talent, always seemed to overshadow him. But Leo had never discovered his own strength, his own special gift. This lack of identity, something to be proud of, had left him with a feeling of inadequacy that still persisted. The family, well known for their distinctive blue and black hair, had 4 children, 3 boys and 1 girl. The eldest son had black hair, the daughter and Leo had blue hair. Each of his siblings had found their vocation, their talent, something they could excel at, but Leo was still unsure of his place, and that uncertainty had only deepened over the years, especially after that defeat against his brother. Feeling the weight of his own frustrations and shortcomings, Leo suddenly changes his attitude, pulls a real steel sword from his shield, and throws it at Cerrone, declaring he will not give up. Just because the wooden swords broke, he insists the duel is not over. Cerrone may have won this round, but Leo will not accept defeat so easily. He is determined to continue, and says that in exactly 1 month they will face each other again. Leo wants a rematch, one where he can prove himself, and perhaps make Renee see he is not just an easy noble son to defeat. Although Leo tries to explain he has never used a sword before, his arrogance prevents him from really hearing Cerrone's words. He does not want to acknowledge the truth in Cerrone's statement. The two part ways, and Cerrone, determined not to be outdone, begins devouring every book on cyber fencing he can find. He focuses on learning quick techniques, knowing that, although he may never be as strong as Leo, he can use his knowledge to level the playing field. In their next duel at the next training session, Leo, with his master, follows orders and puts everything he has into every move. His effort is so intense that his master notices something is wrong. Leo's strength has increased drastically, but there is something unsettling in his behavior. When his master asks what is going on in his mind, Leo denies anything is wrong. But his actions say otherwise. Leo keeps pushing himself harder than before, and his performance becomes so powerful that his master worries about the risk of injury, breaking bones or straining his muscles. Fearing for Leo's safety, his master stops the training and demands he reveal what is bothering him. Despite the pressure, Leo remains silent, unwilling to explain his inner torment. His master, recognizing Leo's potential, but also understanding he needs more than just brute strength, advises him to seek other techniques or skills outside of fencing. He encourages him to find something that complements his sword skills, something that shows he is striving to reach beyond his current limitations. Leo thanks his master for the advice, acknowledging it is the best advice he has received in years. Although Leo admits he is still not very skilled with the sword, he vows to train with such dedication that no one will be able to defeat him in the future. Leo deeply believes in his master's words about the importance of achieving everything in life through hard work and dedication. Cerrone, on the other hand, immerses himself in studying the 6 most important sword techniques of the greatest swordsmen who have ever existed. He is determined to make the most of his time in the city and seize the opportunity to experience the real world. He has promised himself to do everything possible to become stronger, understanding that every moment is valuable. Through his training, Cerrone realizes there is a surprising similarity between the worlds of fencing and magic. Both are infinite by nature. Fencing and magic have no end, always leaving room for improvement. Cerrone practices with a real sword, channeling all his concentration into anticipating his opponent's next move. He uses his ability to enter the spiritual realm to feel and predict the flow of battle. For many days, Cerrone perfects his skills, gradually improving his understanding and technique. Meanwhile, Leo's focus is completely on revenge, practicing out of pride more than a deeper understanding. The month passes quickly, and the time for their duel arrives. It is night when they begin, and despite the calm exterior of Cerrone, Leo is worried. He looks at Cerrone and notices how he holds the sword without the usual composure of a Chinable sword. Leo briefly wonders if Cerrone is telling the truth about never having used a sword before. His ego drives him to believe he will win, but he cannot shake the doubt that begins to invade his mind. In contrast to his first impressions, Leo feels a strange calm emanating from Cerrone. Driven by his need for revenge, Leo steps forward confidently, determined to prove that his training has prepared him to defeat Cerrone. But when he attacks, he is surprised by how unexpectedly calm Cerrone remains. His posture is not what Leo expected from someone who has never wielded a sword before. As he is dodging the blows Leo throws at him, all thanks to his knowledge of fencing, his skill in the spiritual realm also helps him detect which strike will come next. When Leo sees that Cerrone is blocking and dodging all his attacks, he changes his technique, so that each blow he throws at Cerrone weakens him. Although Cerrone can still guide the blows, he plans to tire him out, believing that once Cerrone weakens, he will easily win the duel. But what Leo does not know is that although Cerrone is weakening, he does not waste energy returning the blows, nor let his emotions take control and hasten his defeat. Just when Leo believes he has exhausted Cerrone, he is surprised to see Cerrone attack him. Although it seems like a normal attack, Leo does not think it will be a problem for him. But what he sees next is completely different. During their fight, Cerrone realizes that Leo is only relying on his physical strength and is swinging his sword without precision. This means Leo does not truly understand the art of fencing. Even when Leo starts using more force, Cerrone remains calm, recognizing that mental ability or skill in fencing is more important than brute strength to defeat Leo. Cerrone knows exactly what he must do. He knows that if his physical strength is not enough, he must rely on his technique to deliver decisive blows. However, as Cerrone sees Leo lose focus and become more desperate, memories of his childhood resurface. He remembers how his parents praised his opponents, mostly family members, every time he was defeated as a child. The thought of losing again is unbearable. He cannot accept it, especially because he was the one who started the fight and set the date. Losing now would mean dishonor for him and his family name. Driven by these thoughts, Leo fights like a madman, swinging his sword, without control or awareness of where it is going. Even Cerrone, who is using his skill in the spiritual realm, can no longer detect Leo's blows. This continues for several minutes, where both try to give their best not to lose to the other, although nothing is promised between them about what will happen to the person who loses. The worst thing either could lose, besides getting injured, is their reputation or ego. With all his swords thrown wildly, Leo manages to hit Cerrone in the chest, cutting his clothing. but not deep enough to make him stop fighting. The fight continues until one of them falls to the ground, making a normal sound. Silence falls over the entire place for the first 2 minutes, indicating a sign of victory for the one who still holds their sword. It is Leo's sword that falls to the ground as he swings it wildly. The next strike he thinks Cerrone will take is not what he expects. Cerrone changes his grip mid-move, and before Leo realizes what is happening, he sees his sword on the ground. For Cerrone, this becomes a concern. Since he has defeated a noble twice in a row, he stays there thinking about what could happen to him now. Then he finally speaks, asking Cerrone to kill him to honor the culture of dueling. Cerrone can't believe what he hears and tells him that he won't live to see tomorrow if he manages to kill him. He tells Leo that everything is his fault from the beginning, for trying to lead him, a servant, to death, saying he should have followed his loyalty, according to his instructor's instructions. Leo shouts back, insisting that he should have been loyal to him and explaining everything, including what he could and couldn't do. But after so much serious conversation, what makes Leo believe him more is when he sees Cerrone sitting on the ground crying, saying he didn't want this and never planned for it to happen. Seeing him, Leo is left speechless about what to say. Then he decides to make him his friend, because according to Leo, although Cerrone defeated him, he doesn't mock him like his brothers, with whom he usually fights. He knows that although he doesn't have Cerrone's strength, he realizes that he compensates for the lack of strength with understanding, or he simply decides he's a genius. As they both introduce themselves to each other, their friendship begins. A year has passed since Cerrone started working in the great house of Wenti and has managed to classify more than 7,000 books out of over 10,000. The housemaster is very proud of him, and Cerrone is also proud of himself, trying to read almost all the history books he promised to finish. Now he does it faster, reading between 2 and 3 books a day, enjoying it because he believes it strengthens his knowledge while reading. Since the last time they fought, they have become close friends. Leo now spends his free time with him to keep him company in the library. All this makes them like each other more, since they often ask each other about any topic they choose in the library. Cerrone always begs Leo to be kind to the books, warning him that he, Cerrone, could lose his life if any of them get torn. But Leo always assures him that his life is worth more than a book, and that he will always protect him if something bad happens. However, Cerrone seems to be more worried, as the number of times he sees Leo with him increases, which makes him ask why Leo is not training like before. Leo responds that, although he only had a few basic training lessons left, whenever he tells his master that he is going to the library to study, his master always lets him go. This makes Cerrone shout at him, saying that if he really comes to read in the library, he should be reading. But Leo finds it difficult to read books with pictures or combat diagrams, always saying they are boring. On one occasion, he asks Cerrone that since he is becoming a mage as he wishes, he doesn't think he really needs to read all the books he says he has read. Cerrone responds that he needs to cover or know everything a mage knows to be a mage, and everything a scholar knows to be a good scholar. While they have a discussion one day about who they think could win between a mage and a swordsman, Lee suddenly appears behind them. Immediately, Leo stands up to greet him, wondering if he has been listening to their conversation, but Lee is more interested in their argument, saying that a swordsman will always win over a mage, assuring that they can see in their immediate environment the positions or authorities that both have. Leo does not agree with him at this point, and then Lee asks them to justify this opinion, asking what they think. Cerrone supports the idea that the mage will win, but before he can explain his reason, Lee tells him directly that he is wrong. Immediately, Leo sees where Lee's anger comes from. It is Lee, who always makes him angry because with Lee's rule, everything he says or does is the best, never considering other people's perspectives, always trampling on what he believes is right. When Lee is about to leave, he turns to Leo and tells him that although a mage blindly could enter his spiritual realm to fight a swordsman who would easily win, if he has the armor of sin with him, it is an artifact that is anti-magic by nature. As soon as Cerrone hears the word anti-magic, he realizes he hasn't been studying as much as he should have. He has been too focused on the magical side, as if that alone would help him achieve his goal of becoming a complete wizard. With aspirations to master academic skills, some fencing, and magic, he knows he must do everything asked of him. He continues explaining the phenomenon to the group, saying that fighting a wizard who has entered the spiritual zone is like fighting a whale in the ocean. But with the help of an anti-magic artifact, it is possible to counter any magic they cast, even from the spiritual realm. If one gets close enough, their magic becomes completely ineffective. Lai, who seems to be a history fanatic, enthusiastically joins the discussion and tells them that anti-magic artifacts are made from dragon hearts, which makes them extremely expensive. A single artifact of the armor of sin costs as much as a year of the country's budget, he says, and its price is not fixed. It fluctuates according to demand, which is why only the extremely rich can afford it. The group is surprised when Lai adds that the first anti-magic artifact was created by a wizard. Leo, skeptical, shakes his head in disbelief. But Lai continues explaining that the wizard was driven by greed and the desire to surpass his peers. This revelation irritates both Lai and Leo, who call the wizards pathetic for creating something that could be used against their own kind. But Cerrone, who has been silent for a few moments, finally intervenes, explaining that the anti-magic artifact was actually developed by a wizard, but from the Wizards Association to balance world power. Its purpose was not only to counter magic, but to ensure that no side could dominate. It is even used in wizard schools to discipline students or in forbidden magic areas to enforce the rules. Lai, who usually belittles Leo, feels he has been taught a lesson and humiliated. Frustrated, he can't stand the conversation any longer and leaves, muttering angrily. Leo, for his part, can't hide his smile for once. Someone has managed to put Lai in his place, and it feels like a personal victory. Cerrone enjoys how Leo has managed to make him lose his ego, although Leo never intended this to happen. 6 months later, when the newly relocated library is finally organized, with the book classification completed, 6 months ahead of schedule, the library master admires his achievement. His assistant suggests that perhaps it would be best to extend his contract somehow in the library. Leo bursts through the door shouting as he approaches Cerrone. Having heard that all the library books were finally classified, Cerrone replies that he has also managed to read all the history books he had planned, then surprises Leo by asking if he could visit his house before they part ways. Leo is surprised. After being friends for almost a year, he admits he had been waiting for Cerrone to ask. He agrees and takes him there, assuring him not to worry, since everyone is out and won't return until night. Walking down the hallway of the house, they arrive at Leo's room, the smallest since he is the youngest in the family. The room is messy as expected for boys their age. However, it is filled with an impressive collection of swords, from wooden to steel. After exploring the house, they return to Leo's room and start playing cards as usual. Cerrone wins every round. Frustrated, Leo accuses him of using his spiritual realm abilities. Cerrone laughs and explains he doesn't need those powers. He simply watches Leo closely and advises him to see the bigger picture, not just parts of it. Intrigued, Leo asks if such an ability could work in a scheme. Cerrone confidently responds that if it works in the spiritual realm, it should work in the scheme as well. Eventually, Leo falls asleep. Cerrone takes a fiction book and says he's tired of reading history for now. As he walks down the hallway, he hears the sound of a piano. He knows that only 2 people in the area play the piano, and one of them is Leo's sister. Curious, he peeks his head through the door, unaware that she has already noticed him. When she asks if he likes her way of playing, Cerrone responds, surprised that he does. She introduces herself and asks who he is. Cerrone explains, and she praises him for his diligent work in the library. Then she asks if he has ever played the piano. When he admits he hasn't, she insists on teaching him. Cerrone remembers what Leo told him about her, that she is bad and bad-tempered, but he decides not to be discouraged. She invites him to sit next to her, and he decides to see where it leads. In this unexpected moment, Cerrone feels surprised and somewhat reluctant to sit with her, but she assures him there will be no problem since she has given him permission to join. With her confidence and the opportunity to sit at a piano, something he doesn't know when he'll find again, he finally accepts, albeit hesitantly. She begins explaining what each key represents. Cerrone, being who he is, knows the only thing he needs to focus on is making sure the feeling is right. After listening carefully, he asks if he can try to play with the little she has taught him. To her amazement, his attempt is not only acceptable, but although not perfect or expert level, his way of playing is impressive. For someone playing a piano for the first time, Lena genuinely applauds, surprised by his talent. He hasn't finished playing when Leo bursts into the room, shouting frustrated, because his sister woke him up. But as soon as he sees Cerrone at the piano, he stands still, not knowing what to say. Cerrone apologizes for interrupting Leo's rest, but Leo immediately demands to know how Cerrone knows his sister. Cerrone calmly explains what happened. Leo then introduces him to Elena, explaining how the two have been good friends for over a year. Cerrone turns to Leo and asks why he painted his sister as the most unpleasant person in the family. While the two boys talk, Lena silently watches Cerrone, wondering how someone like him, a peasant, can behave so well and be so handsome. Finally, she asks Cerrone how he managed to play so well. He dismisses it, saying it's just common sense, but Leo interrupts, warning Cerrone not to be fooled by Lena's kindness, calling her a witch. Lena thanks Cerrone for being a good friend to her brother, mentioning that Leo is still immature. Then she looks at Cerrone and comments that he is quite adorable. Leo, in response, jokes that if she likes him so much, she should marry him. Ignoring the tease, Cerrone turns the question around and asks Elena why she is home, especially since there was supposed to be no one else. She explains she is there to help Leo prepare for school tomorrow, as he will complete his certification, a system designed for both swordsmen and mages. Leo and Lena explain to Cerrone how competitive the certification exams are. The number of candidates selected each year is incredibly small compared to the Ralph thousands who try to take it. Although certification can be obtained by accumulating points through the guild or graduating from a magic academy after reaching a certain level, the prestige of passing the exam directly is incomparable. Leo emphasizes that despite unofficial routes, most people prefer to pass the exam properly due to the money and fame it brings. Lena adds that Leo will take the exam at the early age of 18. While gently touching his shoulder, she reassures him, telling him not to worry, his moment will come too. Then, addressing Cerrone, she heads toward the kitchen, casually mentioning that she would love to see him again. As he walks away, Cerrone asks Leo if his sister has a boyfriend. Without hesitation, Leo runs to the hallway and shouts loudly, asking his sister if she is single before he can finish. Cerrone pulls him back again, covering his mouth. Embarrassed, meanwhile, Mr. Luigianus, two members of the house, watch the commotion from a nearby room, silently noting down everything that is said later that afternoon. Leo is training with his master Kate, who is thoughtful, planning how to help Leo refine his skills in the scheme when a servant quickly approaches, saying that Elena urgently wants to see Leo at first. Leo is reluctant, but when the servant mentions Cerrone, he immediately asks his master for permission to leave, promising to apologize later to his father for Cerrone's sake. Meanwhile, Cerrone is being escorted to the family front. The atmosphere is tense, as the head of the family announces, coldly, that the death penalty for Cerrone is the day Cerrone must leave the mansion, but it has come to the head of the family's ears that Cerrone, a peasant, has been associating with nobles, specifically with Leo and Lena. At that moment, Lena is sitting next to her father, watching everything silently. Lena, deeply worried, tries to convince her father to reconsider, feeling there is more to Cerrone than he knows. She believes there is something her father should understand, but her pleas are ignored. The head of the family is fixed on the butler's report, with several servants testifying about Cerrone's repeated visits and his close relationship with the children. Despite the tension, the head of the family gives Cerrone the chance to speak. Cerrone, still kneeling, does not beg for mercy. Instead, he calmly points out that he and Leo have been friends for over a year, and during that time, no harm has come to any of them. He challenges the idea that their friendship is a threat to anyone. Lena watches Cerrone feeling a sense of pride. Even facing death, he remains true to his beliefs and loyal to Leo. She hopes that one day she will also have a friend like him, someone who values kindness and loyalty above all else. Meanwhile, the butler and the servants who testified against Cerrone whisper among themselves. Surprised by his refusal to beg for his life, they wonder why he insists on defending his friendship instead of pleading for mercy. The head of the family, enraged by Cerrone's calm and defiance, orders him to be dragged away. The penalty for his actions will be death, and no one will speak of it outside these walls. Lena protests, but her father is firm, insisting that the family's reputation must be preserved. Even the slightest disturbance, such as Cerrone's friendship with Leo, must be handled quickly and quietly to avoid tarnishing their noble name. Two guards take Cerrone and drag him toward the exit. Just before reaching the door, Leo bursts into the room, with his fury evident as he tries to stop them. He argues, but his father remains unmoved, insisting that the association of a noble with a peasant is a weakness that could damage the family's status. The head of the family believes allowing such a friendship to continue would be a disgrace to his legacy. Leo stands holding the sword his master Kate gave him. His father asks him a difficult question, demanding proof that Cerrone is not just using him for his own benefit. Leo knows this is no longer just a discussion, it is a test, a battle between him and his father, and everything is at stake. Just moments ago, Leo had been with his master Kate, who warned him about the importance of reputation in noble families. Kate told him that reaching out to someone like Cerrone could bring trouble, but Leo refuses to abandon his friend. He remembers the passion he felt while training to defeat Cerrone, and now that passion drives him to defend Cerrone, no matter what happens. Kate, upon seeing Leo's determination, hands him a sword, and tells him he must use it if he truly believes in his decision. Back in the present, Leo looks at the sword in his hand and chuckles softly. He knows he can't defeat his father in combat, but that doesn't matter. What matters is his belief. Cerrone tells his father that their friendship is real, built on trust, not on status or reputation. It is a belief he holds firmly no matter what his father says. His father is furious and accuses Cerrone of deceiving his son and tries to force him to admit their friendship is wrong, but Leo stands firm, saying he would rather abandon his family than give up his friendship with Cerrone. Cerrone, calm and ready to face whatever comes, tells the family he knew the consequences when he accepted Leo's friendship. He is willing to face death for them if necessary. The servants watch silently, moved by the loyalty and bravery they see in Leo. They understand that what they are witnessing is a true friendship, stronger than anything society or family can break. Suddenly, the grandfather's voice echoes from the upper floor, commenting that it has been a long time since he saw something like this, calling it the joy of youth. Lena is the happiest person in the room, feeling that things will turn out well now that her grandfather is back. Her father is surprised to see him here at this hour, and asks why he is present. The grandfather explains he went to visit a friend but had to return, because his friends seemed to enjoy the company of their new wives more than his, so he came back home. Cerrone is surprised to see Clam for the first time. He is a well-known man, the former head of the family and general of Toria, a level 3 swordsman who appears to be in his 30 seconds or 40 seconds, tall and fit. He sits in a chair and says he is excited about what is happening. Leo's father asks why he is especially excited, because the family's reputation is collapsing. Clam replies that although the house's dignity is at risk, he enjoys seeing Juan Deere, that Ron impresses him by how he seems to be liked by people despite the situation. The grandfather takes control of the situation, calls all his grandchildren to speak, starting with the eldest, Lena. She says she supports both Leo and Cerrone, even though she only met Cerrone the day before. She sees he is a very talented person with many good qualities, and disagrees with her father's decision to kill him. Then it's Ali's turn. He calls Cerrone a fool, which makes his father happy because at least someone is supporting his side. But then Leo continues saying that what Cerrone and Leo are doing does not concern him. Although he doesn't like Cerrone, he just wants things to proceed so that his sister can take him to the palace for his exam. In other words, Leo is neutral in the situation. The grandfather enjoys watching everything happening with a smile and turns to Mr. Toran, the third witness, asking him to speak. Although he knows it is not his place to intervene, Mr. Toran says he has been observing Cerrone since his arrival. He sees him as a hard-working boy and mentions all the things Cerrone has done for the nobles. When asked about his friendship with Leo, Mr. Toran admits he didn't know they could become friends, but believes Cerrone has no ill intentions toward Leo. The servants and the head servant who brought the case try to silence Mr. Toran, but Lena is happy to hear everything. It seems the tide is turning against her father, who is now the only one insisting on punishing Cerrone. The grandfather listens to everything said and finally disagrees with the rest. The room falls silent as he explains his decision. Although Leo and Cerrone have become friends, the grandfather insists their friendship must end here today. He says he will not punish Cerrone for having introduced the friendship, but makes clear that the reputation of the house and the family's position in the government are too important. Uses Ali as an example, saying that if such rumors spread, Lee could face discrimination. During his exams in the palace, the grandfather asks Cerrone if he agrees to end the friendship, but after thinking for a long time, Cerrone refuses, says he would rather distance himself but will never give up his friendship with Leo. Leo is surprised and tears fall from his eyes. He remembers what his master, Kate, had told him before coming here. Leo then raises the sword in his hand. Before he can say anything else, his sister begs him not to do it, but Leo goes ahead and plunges the sword into the ground, declaring that from this day forward he will serve Cerrone and will be known as Cerrone's sword. Everyone is stunned, and a bit shocked follows. While the family reacts to this unexpected declaration, what Leo just did is a big deal. It is a practice dating back to the early days of the kingdom, when the small kings formed alliances with the main king through something called the Knight Oath. This oath was a long-standing tradition that noble families have respected ever since. Even Leo's master, who gave him the sword, is left speechless. Knowing he has caused an unexpected problem, the grandfather wastes no time. He stands up and tells Cerrone to take care of his son, orders the servants to bring Cerrone's parents to explain everything that has happened. The grandfather says that, since Leo and Cerrone have sworn to be lifelong best friends, there is nothing more that can be done about it inside Leo's room. Leo is happy. He feels he has convinced them, says he does not regret swearing loyalty to Cerrone. His sister enters the room and tells them about the family's next plan. Both will be sent to a private fencing school. This means that Cerrone is officially part of the family now. At first, Leo does not like the idea of going to school, but his sister explains that it is the situation they have been dealt, and they must accept it. Then she tells Elena that Cerrone really wants to be a magician, not a swordsman. Lena laughs and says it seems that Cerrone was defeated by a magician. This makes both Lena and Cerrone laugh, and they send Leo. Out of the room, Lena sits down and asks Cerrone to explain how he managed to defeat Leo. Cerrone tells her that whenever he is in the spiritual realm, his senses sharpen, which allows him to predict Leo's next move. Then he mentions that he has heard the spiritual realm can increase a person's power based on their concentration. As she is about to leave, she looks at Cerrone and wonders if he will ever have a girlfriend. Seeing how shy he is when he talks to her, she decides to help convince her grandfather about Cerrone's wishes, but makes it clear that this will not prevent them from attending fencing school. She also tells Leo that his master Kate ended her contract with him the day before. Later, Cerrone's parents and the servants arrive. They call him Master. As he hurriedly comes down, he is surprised and tells them it is okay to call him just by his name, but they insist they cannot risk losing their heads. Opening the door to the reception area, he sees his parents. They hug him tightly, showing how much time has passed since they last saw each other. Cerrone notices they look much thinner than before, and wonders if they have been starving, having to think he would not return alive. But his parents assure him it is only because of their age and that they have been eating well. He explains everything that happened between him and Leo, the son of the noble family. His father struggles to believe that a noble would do something like sponsor a peasant, and even wonders if Cerrone is being coerced. His wife intervenes, telling him to stop doubting their son, and that she believes what Cerrone is saying. While they continue catching up the servants, they announce that the master of the house has arrived. He enters with Lena and Leo, and everyone introduces themselves, starting with the master of the house. Each of them mentions their position. Cerrone's parents quickly stand up, showing great respect, bowing their heads as a sign of greeting without further introductions. The master of the house asks if their son has told them everything that is happening. Cerrone's father shouts incredulously, confirming that it is true. Now they are at dinner, and Cerrone's parents are allowed to sit with them as one family. It is the first time their parents eat such food, but they manage it with the help of the servants who teach them how to use the utensils correctly. When they finish eating, Cerrone's father thanks them for their support all this time. He asks them to confirm everything their son has told them, just to make sure it is exactly as he said. The master of the house then talks to them about the plan to send Cerrone to the fencing school, but they will not pay for any of the expenses. However, they will allow him to use their honorary title. They also discuss the possibility of Cerrone becoming a mage, explaining that the best way to do it quickly is to attend one of the top 5 magic schools. With his reputation, they do not expect it to be a problem for him to enter, and if he graduates, he will officially become a mage. Cerrone's parents cannot believe what they are hearing. It seems like an illusion that someone like him could become a mage. The master of the house explains that the real challenge is getting Cerrone into such a prestigious school. To use their honorary title, he will have to sign a document declaring him an opponent, even if only on paper. This will ensure he does not face problems when he arrives at the school. They reassure Cerrone's parents by telling them they are not taking their son away. Vincent, Cerrone's father, is speechless. He does not know what to do with the paper and pen in front of him. To his surprise, Cerrone stops him by holding his hand and saying he will not let his parents sign something like that. He declares he will always be their son. Cerrone says he will not go, even if that means losing his dream of becoming a mage. He chooses to remain a farmer despite his grandfather's efforts to convince him otherwise, arguing that a farmer cannot become a mage. Cerrone responds that his ability to read and be where he is today is thanks to his parents, who taught him to read. He insists he does not want to lose his roots. Vincent, Cerrone's father, immediately kneels and begs them to adopt Cerrone. But the grandfather insists that his opinion must be considered to make such an important decision. Suddenly, Vincent declares that Cerrone is not his biological son. His wife tries to stop him as much as she can, so he does not tell the story of how they found Cerrone in the stable, but finally, he says he is sure that Cerrone is of noble lineage. He thinks the best thing is to adopt him and return him to where he truly belongs among the nobles. Everyone, including the grandfather, is stunned by what Vincent just said. The master of the house realizes it is true. Cerrone does not look anything like his parents. Now his parents are giving him up, but Cerrone is fighting with them, asking them why they would say something like that without telling him first. Vincent tells him he does not want Cerrone to give up his dream because of him. He thinks it is better that Cerrone knows the truth now that he is older. Cerrone says he has known since he was little that being given to the Ohan family means they are abandoning him, just like his real parents did. Being adopted would mean having a total of 6 parents in his life. Tears roll down everyone's faces as Cerrone speaks. It is an emotional moment. The master of the house thinks of another way for Cerrone to enter the prestigious Alpheus school without losing both parents. He remembers that his grandfather has a relationship with the owner of the school. The grandfather confirms this, saying that although it may be difficult to convince the man, the school principal owes him a favor, so it is best to use it now for Cerrone. He warns that Cerrone will be stubborn if he decides not to give in with the help of the housemaster, Cerrone's parents. He can stay until the 3rd day when the preparations are made, for the children to go to their respective schools when the 3rd day arrives. Leo is outside the carriage crying, feeling that the school is separating them. Although both chose the same school, Leo's admission letter arrives first, which means that Cerrone will not be able to attend until next year. If his letter arrives by then, Leo tells him they will see each other during the holidays and will write letters to each other. He tells Cerrone that he must make sure to become a wizard, no matter the situation he finds himself in. Finally, when they part, Leo keeps calling Cerrone's name as the carriage drives away. Lena says she loves the way he clings to his ideals. She wants to tell him something but then realizes that once Cerrone graduates, he will be in a world of magic. The grandfather Owen is at the school, trying to convince the principal about Cerrone's case, even reminding him of the favor he owes. However, the master, an older man, plays hard to get. The grandfather Owen convinces him by describing how good Cerrone is, and how he reminds him of himself when he was younger. Finally, the master agrees and asks why Cerrone has not applied as a normal student. The grandfather Owen explains that Cerrone is not of noble lineage, but the master asks if the boy has blonde hair and blue eyes. The grandfather Owen is surprised by the description and asks the master if he has seen him before. He says no, but something comes to mind. He tells the school principal how he was able to convince him and his family to like him, and how he rejected his proposal when they offered him to become noble. The master says this means that Cerrone understands the law of nature, cause and effect, and that even being a great fencing master, he knows that such knowledge in Cerrone is rare. The master also says that Cerrone reminds him of himself when he was little, because he also never gave up when he was young. Both continue talking about their pasts, saying that the master never wanted any child to be like him when he was younger, so he built the school to guide talented people in magic, so they don't follow the wrong path. He tells grandfather Owen about the country's future, saying they will really need someone like Cerrone. The master finally admits that he had already seen Cerrone before when he was 4 years old, and grandfather Owen says maybe it is fate that Cerrone has returned to learn under his tutelage. The master says that although he does not believe in fate, what he believes most in is the law of cause and effect. Finally, he accepts that it was social class that prevented him from accepting Cerrone when he first came, but now that Cerrone has returned to him, he will accept him into the school. After 3 months, it is spring. Cerrone prepares to go to school, first visiting his parents out of town. Both hug him tightly, telling him how proud they are of him. Even grandfather Owen asks them to come live in the city, offering them one of his free houses. His parents do not tell anyone in the town about his admission to the magic school that will be called Town City. Cerrone gets on the carriage and heads to the school. Finally arriving at the school, a massive house built one on top of another, adorned with many decorative statues. Mr. Tamura, who has accompanied him there, tells him that all his admission fees and whatever he needs will be paid in due time. All he has to do is study enough to make his parents proud. There are other students around Cerrone who are his age, also arriving at the school for the first time. As they gather, Cerrone bows to thank Mr. Tamura. Mr. Tamura smiles and approaches to tell Cerrone a secret to help him survive at school. He warns him that since he is not noble, it is likely that others will try to frustrate him. He tells Cerrone to ignore them because this opportunity to attend such a prestigious school is a rare chance, 1 in a million. Mr. Tamura guides Cerrone through the school hallways as they head to registration. The school is known as the Cradle of Genius, a place where only the best succeed. Upon entering a hallway, Mr. Tamura tells Cerrone to wait for someone to come get him. While he waits, Cerrone looks at the school bulletin board where there are about 30 senior students in the upper level, but only 10 of them graduated last year. This gives Cerrone an idea of how difficult the school will be. Suddenly, someone taps him on the back. It is the teacher, the same man he met before. They recognize each other immediately, and Cerrone thanks him for all the lessons he gave him when Cerrone was younger. Now that he is 17 years old, the teacher begins to show him around the school, reminding Cerrone that he will have to take an entrance exam. This exam will determine which class he belongs to. Cerrone admits he hasn't learned much yet, but the teacher reassures him by saying that as long as Cerrone can enter the spiritual realm, he will be fine. They walk through the first set of classrooms, which are for the younger students, from Class X to Class 8. In these classrooms, students practice basic magic, using it for things like their uniforms and small tasks. Cerrone is amazed at how focused and skilled they are at such an early age. Then they head to the next set of classrooms, from Class 7 to Class 4, which are for the more advanced students. These students are older, and their studies are much more complex. The conversations in these classrooms are full of talk about everything from chemistry to electricity, and no one seems to care what others are doing. Cerrone quickly realizes he has entered a completely new world, one where students are serious, intelligent, and focused on their own goals. The teacher takes Cerrone to the school bulletin board, where they rank the best students in the advanced classes. One man stands out, Amikaris. She is at the top of the list. What surprises Cerrone is how, despite many students having similar skills, one person still manages to stand out above the rest. It is then that Cerrone decides he also wants to be the best student in his class. While still thinking about this, Amikaris passes by with her friend running after her, asking her to wait. Cerrone calls her name, but as soon as Amy hears it, she quickly looks away. He realizes he has seen her before when he was little, the first time he used magic. Her friend notices Cerrone looking at her and whispers to Amy that she should take a look at the new and handsome student. Amy, still distracted, says she feels like she has seen him somewhere before. The teacher interrupts their moment and tells Cerrone to follow him to where the exam will take place. When they arrive, Cerrone sees that there are also small children taking the exam. These children are being evaluated to determine which class they will be assigned to. The teacher tells Cerrone to pay attention to how the examiners ask the questions and, most importantly, to answer them honestly. This is a practical exam with several examiners grading each participant based on how well they perform. When the exam begins, the children enter the spiritual realm to demonstrate their abilities. The examiners record their answers and reactions, noting that each year the participants' skills become stronger. When it is Cerrone's turn, the teacher tells him to just be himself and lets him take the place where they will ask him questions. As he steps forward, all the examiners, they begin to wonder what kind of ability Sabinque Cerrone might have. He is listed on the forms as a family guest or in you. As a special candidate of the director, the first question they ask him is what he can do with his magic. Cerrone answers honestly, saying he has not learned magic because there was no one to teach him. Then they ask him to enter the spiritual realm. The examiners feel relieved, because not all wealthy students can perform magic. When Cerrone enters the spiritual realm, he begins to see what others have been seeing. Now he can perceive the spiritual world like them. The first examiner asks him what he sees, but Cerrone hesitates at first. The director reminds him again to be honest, explaining that he will not be classified by his answer, but will be placed in the appropriate training class. This reassures Cerrone, who answers slowly, saying the numbers keep moving farther away after a brief pause. He finally tells them he sees the number 314, although he has no idea what it means. The examiners are surprised by his answer. What Cerrone just described suggests he is able to see clearly up to 30 meters away, which is well above the standard they had set for the exam. This ability surprises them, as it shows a level of perception that most students do not possess. Next they ask him what is the most vibrant color he can see. Cerrone answers that it is blue, which indicates he is a Swarme, a type of mage with great resistance. The examiner notes that this is the opposite of a clamp, a type of magic user with a different skill set. The director, upon hearing this, suddenly remembers what his old friend Clamp Leo's grandfather had told him about Cerrone. It seems Cerrone's abilities are even more remarkable than Clamp had described then. The examiners ask him how many mana spheres he can see floating around him. Cerrone confidently replies that he sees 867 spheres, which is an impressive number he doesn't need to explain more, as he can feel the mana spheres around him, which equals 86.7% of the standard, and for magical resistance. After finishing the interrogation, the students are asked to wait outside while the examiners deliberate on which class to assign them. While waiting outside, Cerrone stays with the others, but the examiners remain inside, discussing Cerrone's abilities in detail. They talk about the use of the amplifier object and the unique way he perceives the vibrant mana spheres, which have a higher density than expected. The discussion intensifies when Professor SAT suggests that maybe Cerrone was exaggerating or lying about the number of mana spheres he could see. He points out that someone who cannot perform magic but somehow sees so many mana spheres might be lying, since students typically need significant training and meditation in the spiritual realm for their abilities to manifest and become more visible. A female examiner adds that even if Cerrone were lying, a student who cannot back up such claims with real magical skill will not be able To keep up with the class, they place him in one of the other examiners' jokes, asking if Cerrone is training to become a monkey, suggesting his claims might just be attempts to show off. The debate continues for a while. As they try to decide what is the best class for Cerrone, finally, the director enters the room and asks what they have decided. Professor Sat firmly suggests that Cerrone should be placed in the fundamental class, where he could receive basic training and gradually develop his skills. However, another examiner recognizing Cerrone's potential suggests that he should be placed in Class 6, a higher-level class, for students who show significant promise. Sat stands firm in his opinion, arguing that placing Cerrone in Class 6 would be a mistake, believing that being in such an advanced class would inflate Cerrone's ego, leading him to become overconfident and causing potential problems with his training. It insists that Cerrone must start from the basics and prove his skills through hard work and dedication. After much debate among the teachers, each wanting to train Cerrone due to his apparent potential, the room fills with divergent opinions. Some argue that his natural talent should place him in an advanced class, while others worry that he lacks basic training. The disagreement is interrupted by the voice of an older woman at the back of the room. She calmly suggests that although Cerrone is truly talented, he still lacks the fundamental training that would make him truly ready for more advanced classes. She proposes that he should be placed in Class 7, where he can be observed for a time. If his progress is as expected, he could eventually be promoted to a higher class. Finding a suitable class that matches his abilities, the director, after considering this suggestion, agrees with the older woman's assessment and supports placing Cerrone in Class 7. The school's structure is divided into 3 parts, with a total of 10 different classes. Classes 10 to 8 are for novice students who are still learning to enter their spiritual realm, while classes 7 to 4 are for students who are learning the basics of magic, mathematics, and how to connect with their spiritual zones. The last group, classes 3 to 1, is made up of the most advanced students who undergo rigorous training to become mages. These classes are the most difficult to graduate from, with only a small number of students successfully completing the program. The next day, Cerrone is introduced to his new class. Upon entering, he notices that the students are looking at him, and many of the girls whisper about how handsome he is. However, some of the other students seem confused and worried, wondering how someone who did not start as a novice could be placed so high in the class ranking. Despite his confusion, Cerrone is determined to prove his worth. The school itself covers a vast area of about 75 square kilometers, with more than 30 buildings, including dormitories for the students. Classes end at 5 p.m. every day, and there are strict rules about staying within the school grounds during weekdays. Students cannot leave the premises unless given permission, which adds to the rigorous discipline required at the school. Finally, now wearing the prestigious school uniform, Alphys realizes that all classes and work are hard, just as expected from the advanced class he was placed in. Even the richest students who have been studying magic their whole lives still find it difficult to learn easily, but he promises himself he will not fall behind in any of his studies. After the first class, he asks a girl his age where the location of his next training might be. The girl, who is also introverted, tells him that twice a week, all the advanced class students train together. When training time arrives, the girl saves a seat for him. Sitting among the crowd, he notices that when Ami, a classmate, enters, all the students start looking at her. Even Cerrone guesses she might be transferred soon to a higher class. He tries to avoid her as best as possible due to their last encounter. Finally, the teacher enters the training room, which is larger than a regular classroom. The teacher, a woman named Idala Romi, will be his exclusive spirit teacher. After introducing herself, she tells Cerrone to stand up and introduce himself to his classmates. As soon as he stands up, all the students, especially the girls, start looking at him when he introduces himself. A round of applause follows, and he feels overwhelmed by it. Ami and her close friend are among the students. Her friend points him out, saying that he was the one mentioned yesterday when the principal was showing her the school. When Ami looks at him, she knows she has seen his face somewhere, but she doesn't remember where. As soon as Cerrone finishes introducing himself, there is a sudden increase in Ami's brain activity, and she suddenly remembers how she knows him, Ami Karas, the youngest member of the prestigious Karas house. He belongs to a noble family where change happens quickly and geniuses abound. However, she stands out among all, as she possesses the most exceptional talents. The Karas family is known for their unique ability called Red Eye, which allows them to absorb knowledge effortlessly, making their learning much easier than that of other humans. Ami has always been able to do as she pleases, until one day she met a boy in an alley Cerrone that encounter marked a turning point that led her to return home now while Ami watches Cerrone. She suddenly remembers the boy's face. Her mind races, trying to piece together how and where she met him. She doesn't even notice when she blurts out "what the hell," and her friends ask her why she said that, but Ami lies, claiming it was just because she was bored. However, when her friends walk away and keep talking, Ami's worry grows. She knows her brain isn't deceiving her, and she can't shake the feeling that Cerrone's appearance at the school is no coincidence. While reflecting, she begins to wonder how Cerrone managed to get into such a prestigious school. From that moment, she mentally classifies him as someone who is not noble. What worries her most is his past, a past she never wanted to resurface with Cerrone. Now here, she feels the weight of that past, knowing she must do something about it. She keeps staring at him, not knowing what to do next, while recalling memories that have been buried. For so long, it was years ago when Ami used to do whatever she wanted as a noble. She moved with thugs, harassing anyone, especially peasants on the roads. One of those peasants was Cerrone, whom she ordered her thugs to strip just to be able to examine him. But now, since she is at school, Ami has developed a tough and strong facade, rejecting any man who tries to approach or befriend her. What worries her most is that Cerrone might expose her past, a past she deeply regrets. She used to enjoy being surrounded by men, but now with everything at stake, given what Cerrone might reveal, finally the teacher starts the class, explaining how students can transform their spiritual zones into different forms to strike a specific target. She demonstrates by hitting a target in class. To the surprise of many students in Class 7, Cerrone feels grateful to finally witness real magic being practiced and taught. The teacher refers to this technique as the spiritual zone Khitan, which consists of 4 forms: defense, attack, crucicism. She explains each form for defense. It takes the shape of a diamond. The attack is versatile, allowing a variety of offensive strikes in from different angles, while the cross form allows combat from multiple directions. The final form, Schisma, is the most difficult, as it is specialized for certain mages due to its unique nature. The teacher then demonstrates Schisma, creating a spiritual realm, and, to everyone's amazement, separates her body from her mind. Walking out of her spiritual realm, this revelation amazes the entire class, as it challenges their understanding of the connection between mind and body. The teacher emphasizes that the Schisma form allows mages to attack enemies and from all directions, making it very effective but difficult to master. She adds that the students of Class 5 will find it challenging, and that only those who can successfully perform the Schisma will be able to advance to the next class. After explaining the concepts, the teacher asks for a volunteer to demonstrate any of the forms she has taught. When no one volunteers, she calls the outstanding student from Class 4, none other than Ami. The moment her name is mentioned, the students, especially the girls, start applauding in admiration, since Ami has always been the one who helps the teacher with demonstrations. She is known for her humility, making the boys seem like they know nothing compared to her skills. However, to everyone's surprise, Ami does not stand up proudly as she usually does. Instead, she hesitates, feeling reluctant to leave her seat. Finally, Ami challenges herself and steps forward, demonstrating the cross form with ease. She hits all her targets in a matter of seconds, and the class erupts in applause. Her movements are graceful and elegant, and the students sitting behind Cerrone whisper among themselves, admiring her precision and composure. Some even wish to be her friend, knowing they could never match her knowledge and skills. Cerrone, however, remains focused on her, his thoughts drifting to when he last saw her with the bullies. He wonders how someone of her noble status could have been involved in such actions. Ami completes her demonstration of the cross form in just 20 seconds, showing her exceptional skills. When she turns to return to her seat, unexpectedly she looks at Cerrone. The whole class notices the brief eye contact, and many begin to wonder if they have seen each other before. Cerrone, now sure that she is the same girl from his past, confirms it in his mind as their gazes meet. Ami quickly looks away, feeling embarrassed for having looked at him at all. She tries to blame her nerves, focusing on returning to her seat, but deep down, she is worried about how to prevent him from revealing her past. She calms herself, thinking that as the top student, no one would believe a newcomer like Cerrone is above her even if he were to speak. Then the class is instructed to leave their seats and practice in the center of the room, which is large enough to accommodate everyone. The teacher tells the students of Class 7 to start with the defensive form, while students from other classes receive different forms to practice. Cerrone tries to shape his spiritual zone, and when he finds it easy, he asks the teacher for permission to use the magic circle that helps measure a person's spiritual meter. The teacher, somewhat impressed by his confidence, grants permission, thinking to herself that Cerrone must have guts to ask for this, especially being a student of Class 7.